kids? I'm Drew Wagner, and this is Show Love for Sports. How about the first weekend in the NCAA tournament? What a weekend. I have my top 5 picks for most intriguing and most exciting games that I watched over this weekend. You guys give me your votes on what you think of the list and what games you might have done. So we'll start with the men's side, though. JMU versus Wisconsin. That's my number 5 pick. Wisconsin being the better team because they're out of the Big Ten, so they play a lot more bigger teams. JMU not being the bigger team, but they've just won the Sun Belt Championship. A lot of teams, a lot of players, a lot of experts had JMU beating Wisconsin anyway. But again, living in Purcellville, Virginia, 2 minutes outside of where James Madison is, I'll take it. A big win for JMU. The Oregon and Creighton. Anytime you can have a double overtime game the first weekend of the tournament, it's going to set up quite a nice tournament. Hopefully, you're looking for a good rest of the tournament. Even please, Creighton being a number 2 seed and one of the teams that people thought would go to Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even a little further, maybe even a little further than that. Oregon they did put up a good fight, but obviously 2 overtimes, but Creighton gets a win there. NC State versus Oakland. This was a great game because what they both did the first round. North Carolina State won, and for the first time since 2015 to be able to move on to the second round. And Oakland did something that a lot of people probably already know of, but we'll talk about them more as maybe possibly in this list somewhere. But again, Oregon and Creighton, my number 4, North Carolina State and Oakland, my number 3. North Carolina State, 2 big guys there. DJ Burns Jr. doing his thing, pulled down a double-double, 24 points, 11 rebounds. His partner in crime, Mohamed Diarra, 11 points, 13 rebounds, but he fouled out in the 4th. So they were without him through this first and second overtime games, or the overtimes. The thing about Mohamed Diarra is this cat has been, just a rebounding machine. He has been on a tear since the ACC championship conference rounds. So that'll be interesting to see. North Carolina State gets the win there. As they keep rolling on, we'll see how well they do. Number 2, Texas A&M and Houston. Texas A&M and Houston, an overtime game. Here we are, guys. We got a double overtime, an overtime, and Texas A&M and Houston, an overtime game. Again, another great weekend with that. Texas A&M being, outranked because Houston was a number 1 ranked team through most of the season even. Garcia Anderson to send it in overtime. Garcia Anderson, Texas A&M, barely got the ball into his hands before putting up a 3 to tie the game to send it to overtime. Houston, went off in overtime. They did what they needed to do to seal that win. Good for Houston. My number 1, and I told you we might get back to this, Oakland versus Kentucky. The reason why this is such a big game because Oakland was number 4, and we're talking about Kentucky. Bill Self-led Kentucky. I mean, we're talking about the heart of, men's college basketball, one of the teams you always hear about that are always doing well. Well, I guess they weren't ready for Oakland and Jack Gokel. Who, you ask? Yeah, Jack Gokel. Kid came off the bench, dropped 10 threes, and that's all they needed to beat Kentucky in the first round to send them home as one of the bigger upsets of the weekend to go into the weekend.